यमुना तीर विहारी
भजमन यमुना तीर विहारी
भजमन यमुना तीर विहारी
भजमन यमुना तीर विहारी
भजमन राधा तीर विहारी
भजमन राधा चेतोहारी
भजमन राधा चेतोहारी
भजमन राधा चेतोहारी
भजमन राधे 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 गोविंदा
भजमन राधे 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 गोविंदा
भजमन राधे 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 गोविंदा
भजमन राधे 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 गोविंदा
भजमन राधे गोविंदा
भजमन राधे गोविंदा
भजमन गोवर्धन गिरिधारी
भजमन गोवर्धन गिरिधारी
भजमन वृंदावन संचारी
भजमन वृंदावन संचारी
भजमन यमुना तीर विहारी
भजमन यमुना तीर विहारी
भजमन राधा चेतोहारी
भजमन राधा चेतोहारी
भजमन राधे 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 गोविंदा
भजमन राधे 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 गोविंदा
भजमन राधे 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 गोविंदा
भजमन राधे 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 गोविंदा
भजमन 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 राधे गोविंदा। बोलिए राधावर कृष्णचंद्र भगवान की जय, सद्गुरुनाथ महाराज की जय। श्री कृष्ण शरणं मम 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 शरणं मम शरणं मम
शरणं मम
शरणं मम
शरणं मम
शरणं मम
शरणं मम
बोलिए श्री कृष्णचंद्र भगवान की
जय
सद्गुरुनाथ महाराज की
जय
Hari Om everyone. Can you all see me and hear me clearly?
Yes. Hari Om Swami.
Thank you. So today we will be having question answers, and as I see there are 3 of you that can ask questions. The fourth one is a pretty new student, so I will not pick on Veda. So rest be assured, Veda, you can enjoy this class, but 2-3 weeks from now, then I will ask you, because you would have gone through the entire process. And then if I have time, then I might pick on the brahmacharins to answer as well. So let's begin. And before we begin, as the vacation season begins, how many of you are on vacation and how soon will you be on vacation? Everybody is on a vacation? Pretty soon? Good. So if you are traveling, going out on a vacation or anything of that sort, please make sure that you be extra careful, because the delta is already up. It's especially in US environment, if I'm not wrong, there's about 1,000 deaths per day. We have crossed 800 million here alone, and its distant mutated cousin Omicron has started taking its tentacles by storm. So my advice, if you have not already, take the 2 shots, take the booster, mask up yourself, maintain the distance. The same old, the precautions cannot be let down. And if you are following those precautions, then you should be fine. You will not be the one actively spreading, you would also be the one stopping it being spread. So having given that note, let us begin with 3 Ohms, Sahana Bhavatu Guru Brahma, and then I'll start with the question answers. ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्तिः 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 गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुरेव परं ब्रह्मा तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः Before we begin, I am going to ask this question in the group as well. Usually, we take a break even for this class for about 2 weeks and reconvene on January 9th. But since it is an online portal, wherever you are, you should be able to access it. Do you want to continue and go through the next 2 weeks instead of a vacation? You can show that in thumbs up if yes. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Those of you who have not raised their thumbs up, it automatically means that you would not be there. Try to catch up in your leisure because this will be there online on YouTube, so you can follow along as well. If you are not there live, that's okay. Catch up with it through the week. Okay. Now let's get to the questions. Are you guys ready? Okie dokie. Here I come. Let's start with Hemant Ravichandran. Ramachandran. Hari Om Hemant. எப்படி இருக்க?
நல்லா இருக்கே சுவாமிஜி எப்படி இருக்கார்?
நான் சூப்பரா இருக்கு. Nice to see you. A little silhouette, but I think I can see you still.
Oh.
Yeah. So the question for you is, the law of karma applies not only to an individual but also to communities and nations. If I'm a part of larger community that is getting results of action, how accountable am I personally in the grand scheme of things?
So as long as an individual is part of a community, and if the karma applies to a community, then an individual definitely has as much accountability as everyone who is part of the community. But depending on the community's actions, depending on like the larger scale of things, the accountability level matters. So if we're all part of a team and we all want the same goal, and everyone has their own individual parts to play, and one person does not do their part properly, then that can definitely mess everything up. So if that's the case, then definitely law of karma definitely applies as much to that individual as it does to the larger. So I guess to really answer this question, individuals are not exempt from karma, like if the community is going to be affected by it. That's what I'd say. So all in all, I'd say very accountable.
Okay. Let's see what Hari Chaitanya has to add to it.
Hari Om. So I think Swamiji touched on this kind of a question last time. One of the students had asked that everything going on in the broader nation, how responsible am I? And Swamiji had mentioned, what is the reach and the power that you have also? Is this your realm to function in? An example that comes to mind is, if I'm out there in the world and I see someone littering, throwing trash on the street or somewhere, that's not necessarily my place to go there and police them and tell them that what they're doing is wrong and everything. right? But in the realm of if I'm at my Saket Center or Chitrakoot Center or Frisco Center and I see a child doing that there, that's well within my bounds to say something at that point and maintain that decorum in a place like Mission where I'm serving as a member, right? So that is the realm to say something there. That responsibility does apply to me. So being part of the larger community, then it's how accountable that comes from. Where does my responsibility lie? Where do I have an impact? Where should I have that impact? That Viveka has to be there as well. And the second part I'd add is I make myself more accountable in a community when I identify with that larger community. If I see myself as this one individual, or like I mentioned this before, but we stand as one family, bound to our individual mission center. If I believe that way, then my accountability is only in a smaller realm. Expanding that further, then I'm more accountable for broader things that happen as well.
Cool. As far as what I can comment upon it, please check the last week's video because I have extensively spoken upon this particular topic, and it is important to grasp this idea because the individual impacts the totality and the totality in turn impacts the individual. It is vice versa. And therefore, when we say we have the freedom of will, freedom of choice, please execute your freedom of choice in a very conscious, intelligent manner. Which kind of choices? All of them. Not just one or two, all of them. So that is where I'll end with that particular topic. Thank you both. Now for the next question, I would invite Suraj Babu, Suraj Patnaik.
Hari Om Swamiji.
Bhalat Chanti ki.
Agya Swamiji.
Bhalaji. So the question for you is, it is said that our quality of actions determine what I will experience in the future. Besides the act and the intention, are there other factors that influence my karma? If so, if my karma will result in papa punya in the future?
So I think besides my own individual action and intention, the other factors, what I think that the way I'm thinking about it is more like how the individual plays a role in different communities and societies. So I'm thinking about it in terms of shared karma. So there can be factors that come in where we're affected at the community level or family level or society level because there's some sort of shared karma that took place. Ultimately, it was still my act and intention that is bringing whatever result to me. But that's the only other factor that's coming to mind right now is just thinking about it from that perspective of community karma.
So you are just extending it from the earlier question's answer and connecting it into this question.
Basically, yeah. Because I'm trying to think like if there's anything more. When it comes to the freedom of choice that I ultimately have control over the way that I intend to perform an action and then the performance of the action itself. So beyond those two, I'm not sure if there's any other that I can think of.
Let's see if Divya has something to add to it.
Okay, so the other thing that I would think about in terms of my intention, the act itself, I would add the context in which it's done also applies. So one example I wanted to bring up was when Hanumanji the way he defended Vibhishna when he came to Ramji for the first time, and how he spoke or didn't speak in that context. So Vibhishanji came to Ramji's side, and all of the monkeys around were for sure that this is a spy, this is our enemy. So all of that discussion was happening, but Ramji asked each and every individual what should be done about Vibhishan Ji, and it was Hanuman Ji that he asked last. So in this context, for Hanuman Ji, his act is speaking up, defending Hanuman Ji. There is good intention there, and the act itself is also good. But if Hanuman Ji spoke up anytime sooner than when he was asked to, that would actually lead to Papa in the context of what's happening. So Ramji at that point has a reason for going around the entire Vanara Senas to ask them what should be done about the spy. They have to express their opinions. If that is not heard, it can cause doubts and mistrust among the army altogether. The other thing is the context of respecting our elders and those that hold authority, right? That Hanumanji was one of the younger ones. He has to wait until he's asked for his opinion before he speaks, respecting the position that people are in. So this example here is to show that the intention for your specific act is good. The act itself is also good, but the timing and place and context of when that act should be done is also important. So understanding what our responsibilities are, our duties, our place in our society, our place in the community, our place in the context and time is important to consider. When it's not done right, that good karma can lead to papa if it's not done right.
One thing that I would add, and the reason I picked this question is every single action that we perform has an impact, has a reciprocating impact back on us, square and clean. How I act, react, respond. And at that point, whether you're consciously doing it or unconsciously doing it or with intent doing it, without intent doing it, doesn't matter. The results will come back. This is to be understood, first thing. I cannot claim ignorance after an act has been done. That I have done something, good, bad, ugly, indifferent, horrifying, horrendous things, whatever I have done, consciously done or unconsciously done, it is going to come back to bite me and bite me at the most painful way. So that squarely should be understood that that responsibility is on my shoulders. What I am going to experience, I am the one who is purely responsible for experiencing it because I have sown the seeds. No one else has sown those seeds. Therefore, whenever an action is being performed, however small to however large be the responsibility, last answer I had said to be conscious of our choices. That what choice do I take? Is it that I'm being flippant at this particular point because I think that this is a very trivial, not important, not a great impactful event, but all these small details also go into the fabric of my own antakarana, my own internal equipment, the make of it. If over a period of time I have been careless, callous, and not paid attention to details and tried to wing it by, it impacts the texture of our thinking in such a way that where we should have, where we could have paid attention to, also goes unnoticed by us. And the same old pattern that I have established, set up, that ugliness without finesse expresses forth, and it comes back to bite us again. So to be conscious of every single choice, we need to have clarity at that point as to what am I engaging in, what are the impacts of it, the repercussions of it, the results of it, A, B, C, D. And this processing has to happen in a very quick manner, in a comprehensive manner. And when we are not paying attention to these details, along with the actual act and the intention, to be conscious of my own responsibility towards myself, as well as towards that where I am plugged in as a member, as a integral part, whether it is family, school, society, wherever it be, however large, however small, it is going to have that impact. And therefore, I have to be careful in what I speak, what I do, what I don't do, and how precise am I with my thought, word, and action. If that is not clear, then we will be stepping on things which will end up being landmines after landmines after landmines. We would have created our own miserable patterns of landmines. And at that point, to say, usually we have a blame game, to say that, this person or that person would be a sorry figure. So to be conscious that this is my responsibility, and once you are conscious, you will dig deep in to find the most appropriate solutions for every single, I would say, most of the situations that we go through. That it is not a flippant, it is not a callous response, but with respect to every single act. Now, I'll give you a couple of examples, at least one example. When I had the sacred opportunity to serve with Gurudev, he had scribbled his answer on a sheet of paper, this side and that side. But at the end of it, he didn't like the output of it. So he said, discard this. And he gave it to me. And what do we do as soon as a paper has to be discarded into a trash can? That's exactly what I also did. Yes, 30 plus years ago, but still I did the same thing. I crumbled it, I made it into a ball, and I flipped it into the trash can. Gurudev didn't say anything personally to me, but what he ended up doing was like a slap into my face. So he got up, stretched his hand into the wastebasket, pulled it out, opened it up, nicely spread it on his table, the writing desk that he was, and then folded it several times, created that grease, and right at that, he tore it in a very systematic order, and then gathered all of it and then put it into the trash can. Now, one might argue, of course, in my head at that point, there were several standpoints that were picking up. So he looked at me and he said, in the service of that Narayana, it had sacred offering that it offered myself to get to a point of clarity. and it has served its purpose. So even in its discarding, it has to be discarded respectfully, that it has served its purpose. That was like, I mean, that's a lesson to learn. That every single, there is no single act which is like, insignificant. Am I clear? Have I gotten across? On the side, Siddharth had a question about the importance of Jyotishia in here. I would not go into that right now because it will, in Tamil there is a word and I'm going to use that in English. Is it kolapify? Like it'll take it into such a tangential discussion, so I wouldn't want that right now. You can reach out to me personally and then we can discuss that. Okay, thank you both. Now we get to the next question and answerer, or the one who is responding. Aparna. कैसे हो बेटा?
ठीक हो स्वामी जी.
क्यों ठीक हो? बहुत बढ़िया होना चाहिए.
I'll try. आप कैसे हो?
मैं बढ़िया हूँ. Good. Ready for the question?
Sure.
Okay. So the question for you is, if we look at life from the perspective of destiny only, we are victims of our past. However, the law of karma infuses the spirit of creation into our lives by focusing our attention on the future. Despite optimistically looking to the future, how do I realistically understand that unfavorable results will invariably come my way?
So the same thing that allows me to look optimistically into the future is the same thing that gave me what is going to give me unfavorable results as well. So things that happened in my past, the same mechanism that the bad things that I did, the same mechanisms which will deliver the fruit of those actions to me in the future is the same thing that I can use to make my future better. So I can look and I can decide that there is some choice in what I do now to make my future better. But that doesn't mean that I can run away from anything that I have done in the past. Those things will come too. And I can face those things. And that's the thing that is in my hands right now in the present. But I can understand, I can reconcile both the bad results from the past and my ability to influence the future by understanding that it all works with the same mechanism, the same law.
Good. I agree with all the points. Let us see if our Hari Chaitanya has some things more to add to it.
I definitely agree. And the frustration comes when I seemingly do everything right the way it's supposed to be done, full forth, full effort, things still don't turn out my way. And optimism with what I'm doing, especially when I'm doing it well, would lead me to believe that things won't go wrong. There will be no complications. But invariably, when that happens, I often feel crushed. That's something that really bothers us. So, understanding that a mature perspective on that is also that it's me doing my full effort and things not turning out well. That's also because sometime in the past, more distant past, I didn't do something the proper way. Therefore, the result is coming to me here as well. So there's no scapegoating and there's no blaming anything else but my own previous actions. and that's how really we can reconcile it as well.
I think that was a very comprehensive answer. I don't want to add anything else to it. Thank you both. Okay, let's go to Pranav. Are you doing well?
Yeah, నేను బాగున్నాను. మీరు ఎట్లా ఉన్నారు?
Oh, నేను బాగున్నాను నాన్న. Okay, let us look at the question for you. How does the attitude of Karma Yoga affect our choices in the present and the results in the future?
So I guess the clearest analogy I really liked from Gurudev in the book is the idea of the impressions or grooves in our head that we build up. And Karma Yoga is kind of like a fast track to building up those good behaviors and tracks. Because in the service of others, we learn to, really understand how to develop those good personality and behaviors, which will serve to augment, whatever bad impressions or bad personality we've had in the past, and serve to make a more beneficial outcome for us in the future. So I kind of see it as like an easier way to really understand how to get into that good impressions in the head and try to address our weaknesses.
Thank you, Pranav. Divya?
So I guess we'll take one step and kind of define what Karma Yoga is. So Karma Yoga is the attitude of the mind while performing actions and receiving results. So the perspective is that we are offering to the Lord and receiving the results as his gift. The whole point of that perspective is that we are removing our perspective of functioning from the ego standpoint. That it is not about me, it's not for me. It's about keeping the higher perspective when analyzing the situations that's around me. The higher values, the higher vision is where I'm acting from, not from me, myself, and I perspective. So when I start thinking from this higher objective standpoint, we're cultivating our mind to be in such a way that it can handle the future results with samatvam, and it helps us cultivate that tendency or habits in us to be more objective and practical with what is our responsibilities and what is our duties, and to act because it is required to act. So that again is giving us the habits of moving away from my likes and dislikes, what that lower values of picking, having the ability to choose the right thing when it comes to the path of prayas or path of shreyas, because we continue to act from the higher standpoint. So when it comes to the choices in the present, I am choosing to act from this higher perspective and higher attitude. And when it comes to the results in the future, I have that clean, calm mind to handle the results, whether it's good or bad, with a sense of samatvam. So it is all about the change in the attitude and not necessarily going after good results. We're moving away from both papa and punya, and it's about being samatvam in the presence of both.
Finito? Okay. Now, in the attitude of Karma Yoga, we have the intellect or the antakarana, the decision making faculty. And this decision making faculty, there is a lot of input that has gone in, and based on that, it will make the decisions. So one might say I had briefly touched upon this topic while going through the chapter itself. So let me connect that aspect as well, along with what you both have said. That it might appear that our intellect or the whole system of this freedom of choice, freedom of will, is a pretty rigged system. There is absolutely no such thing. Why? Because my intellect, which has to finally end up making decisions, is making its decisions based on all the sum of my past. So my past is controlling, and therefore what I do as a decision now, there are people that argue saying that I have no control over it. It's like I'm a puppet. Narayana. So I'm a puppet of my own intellect. But the point is, yes. Okay, let me give an example. The same example which I had given earlier is, understand that, say, a horse or a cow is taken out to graze and you wanted to take rest. So you tied it down to a tree and you're taking rest. Now this cow has the freedom to graze, but how much can it graze? The limitation is of that rope, but within that it does have the ability to graze around. Similarly, our intellect may seem that it is limited, but within those limitations, we still have the ability, the scope to make the right decisions. That part is not rigged. So, therefore, our freedom of choice is consistently there in every single activity. Now, with this, the karma yoga attitude, meaning performing the actions selflessly and to offer it at the highest altar. We usually offer it at the altar of our family, altar of our it's still limited. The highest that you can offer to is to that Bhagavan himself, and that is what makes it liberating. So being selfless and offering it to the highest altar, when such choices are made and consciously having offered it to the highest and being selfless, then the results are the most beneficial and sattvic. And that is how we become the architects of our future. Immediate future as well as a distant future. So how do you want your future to be? Get a grip at what direction you want to get to. What is it that you want to define yourself to be? Define your accomplishments to be. Define your part of being a solution to the society to be. Is it going to be nothing wrong with it, but is it going to be just a 8 to 5 kind of a cubicle environment, or is it going to be something out of the box but something connected with the society, to the environment, to the large population that we are as humanity? How can what I do be a solution to uplift that society, uplift that humanity, uplift that environment? So with that contribution, when we think and make the choices with a dedicated act, it will surely be uplifting, satisfying, fruitful, and enjoyable. So that is how we comprehensively have to think through. Thank you both. Now, who is left? Siddharth.
Hariom Swamiji.
Ariam. Pranam. So my question for you is, if you have a tendency to get angry and want to overcome that tendency, the first step is to feel repentant about it. Just feeling repentant will dissipate your anger to some extent. So the question is, this is what Gurudev has said. So the question based on that is, what is the fine line between feeling the necessity of repentance versus beating myself up for a low tendency to be existing and to be entertained?
I would say that repentance stems from the buddhi being in control of the response that you have, versus beating yourself up about it is from the manas just acting as it is. Because the entire notion of repentance here has a logical understanding and a conviction behind it, an understanding that what I have done is what I should not have done, and this is what I can do to be better about it. This is what I can change in the future. It comes from a logical standpoint that has conviction and understanding behind it, versus beating yourself about it is just another emotional reaction to the original emotion of anger in the first place. So I would say it's the fine line is, where is this response being driven from? Is it driven from an emotional standpoint or an intellectual standpoint?
Fair enough. Thank you. Harana?
Repentance is a very funny emotion at times. Oftentimes we say things to elicit a reaction from other people. Not that we actually mean it, but we want that certain reaction. I think that scene from the movie, there are high school girls hanging out in the cafeteria, and one of them says, I want to lose 5 pounds. And she pauses and looks at her friends. Oh, you're so skinny. You're so skinny. Why do you want to do that? Like, she's waiting for that kind of a response from them. Similarly, when it comes to repentance, if I say out loud to someone, I'm feeling so off about what I did, we're waiting for that person to validate that and kind of alleviate what we did and say, no, it wasn't that bad. So repentance can be that ego goading thing as well. So true repentance, the way Gurudev is looking at it here, is that understanding what my actions led to, or understanding that the anger that I have, that is not productive, and in many cases for myself and others is actually harmful. After that understanding comes, if I have the right words for repentance, then saying that what I did was bad, that anger that I have, I'm not proud of that anger rising up. It's not a tool to be used in a proper way either, but totally unproductive. Once that understanding is there, repentance is in the right direction. Now, the second part of it is, even if that understanding is there, that I understand the effects of what this anger has, therefore I shouldn't subscribe to that anger, shouldn't be so quick to get it. Repentance is a kind of comfort zone as well, where I keep saying again and again, what I did was so wrong. Beating myself up like that, it feels comfortable because I'm in that mode where I don't really have to improve. Wait for the next time that I make the same mistake, I can keep going at it again and again. So where does repentance end? Where does action begin? That would be the way of getting myself out of that pattern of constantly beating myself up when that anger arises.
How does one recognize that you are truly, genuinely repenting versus beating yourself up? Yeah. In both cases, you have recognized something that which you have done, which in your own understanding is not right. Okay. In the question of beating yourself up, what happens is you get stuck in a situation where the same uh, digging of that past and same patterns of questioning, kind of being stuck in it, and you keep repeating it the nth time. And it happens so many times when I'm counseling. There are people that want to speak and they have already said it once. Now I see that they are repeating it the second time. And when I say repeating it second time, it is not that they have changed their way of expression or words. No, it is the exact verbatim, it is repeating. You can see it. But you tend to stop them. They're not happy with it because they are not satiated with their expression, their venting. Okay, you give them the room for that venting, and that's it. What do you observe? You observe that they're repeating the entire process of digging it and kicking themselves up, beating themselves up. So whenever you are caught up in a loop and you tend to observe that loop repetitively, understand that you are in that process of beating yourself up. But whereas when you are truly trying to regret, you recognize what has happened. Having recognized what has happened, you take the responsibility, whether it is, it starts with admitting first. Yes, it was me who has done it. This is how it has resulted. If it needs an apology, if it needs a word, if it needs whatever needs to be done, okay, after accepting that, yes, it was my own action, the doables are done. Having done that, then comes the growth pattern, where that particular experience can be turned into a stepping stone. That is what true repentance actually should lead to. That I have truly done something which is myself, I don't accept in my own standards, it is not right. I know it is not right. So I go to that person, to that environment, to that individual, to those group of people, wherever it was. Have the courage to stand up and say, I am sorry. One needs to have that courage. Otherwise, we don't even meet our eyes together. Like you're just trying to avoid that. And having said that, now you need to understand all the environment that it has happened, whatever has happened, and make a note. How do you make a note? Remove the person, remove the people, remove the A, B, C, D involved. Look at it as XYZ, and there is this experience that has happened. What triggered it? Where did it go wrong? How can it be corrected? Where should I manage myself that this same mistake will never ever happen again? And when you boil it down to a crystal clear clarity, there is a nugget of wisdom. And that nugget of wisdom becomes your stepping stone as a result of your true repentance. When we say at the end of the puja, Kayena vacha manasendriyairva buddhyatmana va prakritir swabhavat. So in any one of these, there could have been consciously, unconsciously, inadvertently, there could have been things that I have done which I recognize I shouldn't have. Give me the strength, give me the courage to walk the path now with this clarity. So what is the last line of Gurudev's pledge that we always chant? We know our responsibilities. Give me the ability and courage to fulfill them. Om Tat Sat. So to boil it down to that crystal clear clarity and to carry that wisdom forward, many of us, when we do not face it, do not have the courage to even apologize, let alone to crystallize it into clarity. We lose a very beautiful, important lesson of life that our failure is ready to teach us. we make it a ego thing. And the moment you are in that ego trip, you are not repenting anymore. One of the hilarious ways is how the high school cafeteria example that Hari just gave, that we seek a validation through a fake statement, and the moment that gets satisfying responses, we think we are done, we are moving forward, but we are moving into a trap which we are creating for ourselves, where we become more and more callous, more and more careless, more and more unconscious in our own lifestyle. Comprende? Thank you. Thank you both. Today, before I wind up, I would like to invite Suraj, and I would want him to chant, instead of Hanuman Chalisa, the Nirvana Shatkam, Manobuddhyahankara Chittani Naham. For reasons that I do not want to unveil here, but for all those yupsters out there, this is the prayer. Please participate, and I pray for the strength along with all of you. Please.
Om Mano Buddhyahankara Chittani Naham Na cha Shrotra Jive Na cha Ghrana Netre Na cha Vyoma Bhumir Na tejo na vayu Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham न च प्राणसंयो न वै पञ्चवायुः न वा सप्तधातुर्न वा पञ्चकोशः न वाक्पाणिपादम् न चोपस्थपायु चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहम् चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहम् न मे द्वेषरागौ न मे लोभमोहौ मदो नैव मे नैव मात्सर्यभावः न धर्मो न चार्थो न कामो न मोक्षः चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहम् चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहम् न पुण्यं न पापं न सौख्यं न दुःखं न मन्त्रो न तीर्थं न वेदा न यज्ञः अहं भोजनं नैव भोज्यं न भोक्ता चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहम् चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहम् न मे मृत्युशङ्का न मे जातिभेदः पिता नैव मे नैव माता न जन्मः न बन्धुर्न मित्रं गुरुर्नैव शिष्यः चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहम् चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहम् अहं निर्विकल्पो निराकाररूपः विभुर्व्याप्य सर्वत्र सर्वेन्द्रियाणां सदा मे समत्वं न मुक्तिर्न बन्धः चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहम् चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहम् शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहम् शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहम्
Thank you, Suraj. May I ask Hari Chaitanya to chant 3 times Mahamrityunjaya mantra, please?
Yeah. ॐ त्र्यम्बकं यजामहे सुगन्धिं पुष्टिवर्धनम् उर्वारुकमिव बन्धनान् मृत्योर्मुक्षीयमामृतात् ॐ त्र्यम्बकं यजामहे सुगन्धिं पुष्टिवर्धनम् उर्वारुकमिव बन्धनान् मृत्योर्मुक्षीयमामृतात् ॐ त्र्यम्बकं यजामहे सुगन्धिं पुष्टिवर्धनम् उर्वारुकमिव बन्धनान् मृत्योर्मुक्षीयमामृतात्
Thank you, Hari. Let us conclude with the Shanti Patha. ॐ सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मा अमृतङ्गमय ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्तिः 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 हरिः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ॐ Take care everyone. Have an amazing weekend which is ending. But since most of you have showed your thumbs up, I would be waiting for seeing all of you in, and we'll continue the satsangs next Sunday as well. through the vacation. So be careful out there. Hari Om.